If I can't make a pin out of this, maybe I'll try this. Wire can be bent and shaped with a hammer. So far we've been talking about sheet metal, but of course jewelry is made of wire too. You can buy wire in a range of sizes, but it's nice to be able to make what you need just when you need it. The equipment for this is very simple. It consists of a draw plate, a piece of hardened steel perforated with a series of holes of decreasing size. Each hole is tapered, being smaller at the front, slightly larger at the back, funnel-shaped. The draw plate is clamped into a vise, and the wire is pulled through each successive hole. In this case, we'll be making round wire. With a different draw plate, it would be possible to make half round or square or wire of any other cross-section. The first step is to file a taper on the end of the wire so that it will fit through a hole smaller than the existing diameter. The wire is fed into a hole where it makes a snug fit and pulled through with these heavy-duty pliers called draw tongs. You'll notice that the handle is curled to increase grip and the jaws are coarsely serrated. The wire is pulled through with slow, even strokes. You'll notice several things happening. Perhaps the most obvious is that the wire is getting longer. This is because it's getting smaller, and of course no material is being lost. You might also see that it's shiny. This is the result of a burnishing action of the steel plate on the wire. The other factor that is maybe less obvious is that the wire is becoming work hardened. The stresses of compaction are causing a tension at the crystalline level. There will come a time, if I continue drawing, when the wire, rather than pull through, will snap off. That means the wire has reached its limits of malleability. And before I can continue, I'll need to anneal it. To anneal the wire, I'll heat it up to about 2/3 its melting point. Annealing wire is a little tricky because the mass is large, but each individual thread is delicate and easily melted. You'll notice that I secured the coil by wrapping the ends of the wire around. I'd either do this or wrap it with a piece of fine wire, preferably copper or stainless steel. And my selection has to do with the fact that I wanted to go from here directly into the pickle. If you were to use binding wire, you'd want to be sure to unwrap the binding wire before putting it into the hot pickle, or else the metal would become copper plated. At this point, the metal is smaller than it was before, still shiny, and considerably more malleable. Remember, if you're going to continue drawing, be sure that the wire is carefully dried. The draw plate is made of steel and will rust if exposed to moisture. An interesting way to give unique shape to wire is with the use of a swage. This is a piece of tool steel that I've shaped with saw and file, and then polished, hardened, and tempered. I'll grip it in the vise. Lay a piece of annealed wire in the groove and strike it with a planishing hammer. As simple as it is, even bending wire has a few do's and don'ts. Don't, for instance, use sharp tools that will put scars and gashes in the wire. Don't use pliers that have serrated jaws. The best tools are your hands. They're soft and squishy and won't leave any marks on the wire, and of course they have infinite control. There are times, however, when they're just not strong enough, and you'll need to turn to the leverage of pliers. Small curves are bent with the round nose pliers. For larger curves, we use ring-forming pliers. Here we have one flat jaw and one half-round jaw. The curved jaw is put on the inside of the curl. The flat jaw touches only at the tangent. To make a square bend or straighten out a curve, I use square nose pliers. Sometimes a small pinch is all that's needed. For cutting, you can use wire cutters or a more delicate straight end cutter that leaves a nicer looking end, or toenail clippers. One of the familiar uses of wire is as jump rings. These are small rings that make a bridge or jump from one element to another, for instance, from a pendant to a necklace, or from one link of a chain to another. It's possible to buy jump rings, but most hand craftsmen make their own as they're needed. The process could hardly be more simple. I'm wrapping a piece of wire around, in this case, a wooden dowel. Other mandrels would include nails, knitting needles, or pieces of wire. Some people like to saw the rings while they're still on the mandrel. I usually prefer to slide it off. The cut-off rings are allowed to drop into the sweeps drawer, where they can be easily retrieved. Forging, the process of shaping metal with a hammer, requires annealed metal, a hammer, and a solid work surface. I'm working here on a large anvil, which has the advantage of stability because of its weight. Many metalsmiths, however, use a piece of railroad track or a similar block of steel. Hammers are available in a boggling array of sizes and styles. It might be easier to understand if we think in terms of families. Mallets are used to bend metal without thinning it. They can be made of rawhide like this one, or wood, rubber, or plastic. One face on the planishing hammer is perfectly flat and the other is slightly domed. Both faces are mirror polished. The planishing hammer is used to smooth out the surface of metal. In speaking of hammers, we refer to the face and the peen or back end. This one is a ball peen hammer. The one I'll be using for forging is called a cross peen. We saw this shape before in the riveting hammer. A lot of the